She's kind of,
With the baby?
They made a mistake.
Okay,
not specifically with the baby.
David.
Dave.
Oh, is it Dave?
It always comes back to Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was
It's like,
kind of,
it's like the gift that keeps on giving.
yeah, she missed, yeah, she couldn't go to yoga in the morning and she couldn't go to that party in the evening.
Yeah.
She was just like wiped out.
No beer.
No, I'm not Susan Brown.
Aw.
She seems a little.
welcome to our year-end meeting, December 30th, 2024. We will start with opening a public hearing to consider approval of a one-year contract with the City of Ithaca Fire Department for emergency responses and fire protection and capital projects. You were sent the full contract. Remember, this is just a one-year contract. CJ, can you hear us okay? A one-year contract. The city will be engaging a consultant to work with the city and the town to decide what the formula should be moving forward for a contract. I assume it would be another 5-year contract at the end of 2025. So this is to tide us over for a year. I do not see any members of the public who wish to address us. Any members of the public who would like to address the board on the fire? If not, I'll close the public hearing at 11:03 and bring it back to the board. Would someone like to move the resolution? Eric, is there a second? Susie seconds. Any questions? Comments?
Quick question about the $1 million fire engine. Is that an electric fire engine, do we know?
No, that would probably be twice as much money. By the way, if you haven't driven by up on East Hill, the fire station is really cool.
Mhm.
And so I know that we talked about, we'll probably have a tour when it opens later on this year.
I have a question on this, Ron. The whereas, which is the proposed fire contract with the city of Ithaca is for the provision of fire protection services and emergency services for the town, except for the village of Cayuga Heights. Isn't there a portion of the Northeast that's covered by the village of Cayuga Heights?
Rich, do you remember?
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull up.
I know they cover like the cigarette streets, or at least I thought they do.
Right, and I remember I was writing this resolution, and I think that the law, I can't pull it up like super quickly, but the law that's referenced in the resolution only references the exception, the Cuda Heights exception. The Northeast is covered under a separate agreement, I think. So, I mean, the wording isn't, it's not, I guess it's not accurate, but for purposes of the resolution, it's what needed to be in there. As far as I did ask a question about that too. So
I mean, yeah, you know,
I mean, we could,
it's just not.
if it's informational, we can add the language about, portion of the town. If it makes you more comfortable.
I mean, we do have this separate agreement with Village of Cuba Heights.
Right, but this appears to be an agreement to cover all of the town, with the exception of the village. I mean, if I were the city, I would not. You know, it's not clear what the city's obligations are that we're agreeing to.
Is there a simple,
I think you can say, except for the village of Cayuga Heights and the portion of the town covered by an agreement with the Cayuga Heights Fire Department.
so who, did you move that? Who moved this?
I moved it.
Moved it.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
And who, you're okay with it?
Yeah.
Rich, does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
Any other comments? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Right.
Unanimous. Moving on to, this is setting a public hearing. It feels like this has been before us several times. So this is regarding the proposed local law revising Town of Ithaca Code Chapter 270 in terms of zoning violations, penalties. I think that we paused the previous public hearing because Susan Brock made really what were minor changes, but just to be safe, we decided to set the public hearing for a little bit farther. So you've seen the material probably 2 or 3 times now in terms of Susan's memo and the changes to the law itself. So again, just today, we're just setting the public hearing for January 3rd. Would someone like to move this? I'll move it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
5 seconds. Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Oh, we have another sewer exemption. So these keep coming up. So there's a resolution, a memo from Dave, and of course a map. And it's interesting that right now the address is 0 Woodgate Lane. I'm assuming down the road, Marty will get an address that's not 0. I see Marty shaking his head, yes. So obviously this is one of those cases where the proposed house is far from an existing sewer main. You can see that the estimated cost to link into the existing main would be greater than $1 million. This is obviously, we passed this, the town engineer will look at this, Cuba Health Department is involved. Dave, is there anything that you want to say about this?
No, not really. Just the sewer's pretty far away. It's over 6,000 feet away. So
And just to remind folks, I think the map makes it clear where this is. Off from Culver Road, is that correct? Woodgate Lane?
yeah, Woodgate Lane is up off of Pool Road, up Pool Road and Sheffield, up in that area.
So would someone like to move the resolution?
I'll move it.
Heard Pam first, and I heard Rich second. Questions, comments?
I just have a question. Where is the sewer line? Which street is it in?
It's a good question. The closest sewer to there is gonna be Bostwick Road. Or Elm Street, one of the two.
I would say
Okay.
Elm Street.
Probably
is
Elm
not-
Street. So pretty far away.
Yeah,
I can pull up a map
I'm
here.
looking at Google Maps. I've seen Bostwick intersecting Sheffield.
There is some that comes up through, to the Eco Village property as well. Some town-owned sewer main, but it would be Elm Street Extension or Eco Village would be the closest, I believe.
Okay. That's pretty complicated.
It's not a very dense area. In terms of population.
Mhm.
You okay?
Yeah, yeah, all clear.
Okay, any
Yeah.
other questions? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Why?
Hi.
Unanimous. Number 5 is just thinking ahead to the Association of Towns Conference. We sometimes take a look at the proposed legislative resolutions. There's 17 of them. I don't know if you are prepared to talk about them today. We certainly have time. More important today, I want to see if there are volunteers that act as our representatives at the committee. We did put up the resolution from last year. I've already heard from Rob that he would be willing to be the delegate to
Yes.
represent the town. He's planning on going. Last year, I believe that Susie was, or Margaret was the alternate. So the resolution from last year that we amended for this year is on your computers. So at the end of our discussion, is there someone who would like to be alternate?
I'm gonna be there, so I can be the alternate.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Unless folks
You know,
okay?
it's on Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
Session.
I leave Wednesday.
Is there anyone disappointed if they're not going to be a delegate? Okay, so is there any of the resolutions that folks would like to talk about today? Some of these will look very familiar.
I
Are those in
don't
our
see
packet?
item 5 on my desktop.
They were sent out, I believe, on Friday, but they're also on.
I looked for them on my email and the email attachment didn't have the resolutions that I could see.
But it's also.
Which one are they?
that's-
No, I mean the
second one.
AOT resolution.
This one here?
No, it's the-
This,
Oh,
this
thank you.
is the delegate.
Right, but this further
Oh,
discussion
this
of
one.
the AOT
Oh,
resolution.
yeah. Yeah, but. That one's good.
So you've certainly seen preserve and support home rule. I think that's just a standard one. It's always on there. I don't know, let's see if there's any,
I'm flying today, I swear.
maybe the support that dedicated funding for PFAS is new. I don't know if that was in the forefront last year, so that might be new. Battery storage, I can't remember if battery energy storage.
That's
was.
a new one.
So we can certainly bring this to another meeting if folks kind of now know, oh, okay, let's take a look at these. But certainly we want to give some feedback to our delegate, alternate delegate before they go in February. So is there anything that you want to talk about today?
I would just encourage us to look and see.
Can you
if
speak
there-
up a little bit, please? Margaret?
I would just encourage us if we have something in mind that we think would be appropriate for an AOT resolution to start thinking about that now. My understanding is it's in the summer when they start putting this together. And they have a bunch more resolutions here, but there may be ones that are important for the town of Ithaca that are not represented here.
And there's probably, I know that there's a resolutions committee that meets throughout the year. So presumably there's a process. So thank you. Now, do you have something kind of in mind right now, or something you'd like us to consider?
no.
Okay. Okay, so we will, each meeting for the next couple of meetings, we'll bring this up to see if there's any dialogue that folks. want
I
to
mean,
have.
we could, I work in the area of energy efficiency and battery storage, and I could say something about this resolution where it seems like they want to not have this regulated at a state level. They don't want the state to preempt local regulations around battery storage. And I think it's easier just to have one rule for the whole state. So I don't know why we would necessarily support this.
Anyone want to respond to that right now or just think about it? So we'll bring this back to upcoming. Thank you for that comment about number 17. And if you go to that resolution, your computers, let's see delegates. And I think we've already put, so change Margaret's name to Susie Gutenberger's name. So would someone like to move this resolution about designation of official delegates?
I'll move it.
Good, is there a second?
A second.
Pam? All this noise in the background. Any comments? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Thank you very much. So who else is planning on going to be there in person besides? I think I'm going.
You are?
I
Okay.
think so. Susie, anyone else going?
I'm on the fence. Good.
Make room.
When do we have to know about?
That's for me.
I don't think the price goes up again until maybe mid-January.
And did Paulette make the hotel reservation?
I don't think so, yeah.
So we should probably decide.
So there's two of you on the fence, Eric.
Yeah, we're on the fence.
No.
Margaret, you're also on the fence potentially.
I will research these and help from behind the scenes, but
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, if you are going and you want Paulette to help with, well, to register, to help with a hotel reservation, to the bus, if you're taking the bus, all that. It will probably end up.
Yeah, make sure.
Ashley, who's the clerk?
The clerk's app.
Okay, moving on to the next item. This is authorization to amend the agreement with a wireless telecommunications consultant to evaluate the proposed personal wireless service facility tower at 111 Weedmere Court. The agreement had originally been signed September 2024. The amendment just extends it through the end of, through September 5th, 2024. This has gone on longer than we had expected. Longer than we had expected. And I do just want to make a comment that if you've been following this, there have been some members of the public who have raised an issue of conflict of interest on the part of William Johnson. That has been researched. I know that our attorney has made a comment at, I believe, well, I know at ZBA, and I believe the same information was given to the planning board that there is no conflict of interest based on her research into that. So I just wanted to make that statement in case you had, I think we've all been copied perhaps on some emails regarding that. So would someone like to move the resolution extending the contract?
Move it.
Rich, is there a second? I'll second. Any questions or comments?
What was the nature of the conflict, of the alleged conflict?
Marty or CJ, are you able to say what the alleged conflict was?
Or do you want to go ahead?
How about I go and then CJ fill in if I miss anything? How's that? So there are allegations with Mr. Johnson identifying that he has we'll say a positive relationship with Verizon based on comments that had been submitted on his LinkedIn page by the Verizon applicant at this point in time. That's to the town of Ithaca. So essentially, there were some positive comments coming out of that, and based on those comments, individuals perceived that there is a conflict of interest with him.
And if anyone's interested, I can send you the link where Susan Brock is talking about this. I think it's at a ZBA. If you're interested, where she just puts out to the public that she does not see a conflict.
Doesn't seem like a conflict of interest.
It was in, I read the LinkedIn comments and the Verizon, first of all, this happened a decade or more ago. It was a long time ago. And the Verizon attorney said that basically said, Mr. Johnson is very thorough. We don't always agree, you know, sometimes we're on opposite sides. We don't always agree, but I think he does good work, essentially. So
Conflicts usually require some kind of
money,
monetary
yeah.
incentive.
What is the service that this contractor is providing to the town? I thought that the applicant presented their case to the planning board and planning department, and that was it. I don't understand why we're hiring an outside consultant.
So because they need a height variance, the consultant is assisting the zoning board of appeals in any questions they may have based on the technicality of the application materials that have been submitted.
Yeah, so Professor Johnson has the specific engineering experience that is useful to the planning board and zoning board during their review.
So he's evaluating the technical basis for the height variance?
Yeah, for any. I mean, I guess the component here is that the zoning board of appeals are taking a look at bandwidths and what is necessary for specific heights that are being requested as part of the height variance, and if other alternates that are being proposed could be viable as part of that height variance request.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions? Not, if we're ready to vote, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Moving on to the consent agenda, there's quite a few items in the consent agenda. We did update we added a piece of equipment to the surplus. So if you were paying attention, changed slightly from the first time it was sent around. You would have had to really, really focus on it to see that small addition. Would someone like to move the consent?
I would like to pull an item just for a brief discussion. It's the contribution to a tour in support of Cass Park and Stewart Park.
With taking that out, would someone like to move the consent agenda? Suzie, is there a second?
Second.
Pam seconds. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
And then, Rich, this is a standard one that we have, but what's your question?
Well, I mean, the question is that absent the data that supports the contribution, I mean, are we going to see that at some point?
We typically see later in the year, they provide an annual report, talk about the numbers, money we're from
Sure.
the town of Ithaca.
And I don't recall seeing that for this year. That's just,
I think we did.
you got it eventually. All right, then I guess so. I'll move this resolution.
Is there a second for that? A second. Eric, any further questions? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. There's a number of things in consent. One of them had to do with gun range, complained about the noise. When I meet with Deb Mollenhoff, I'll bring this up again. It's been a while since this was raised as an issue, but some of you I know live close enough that used to hear sounds. And even though the city said that they would use silencers, or is it the county? There's others that use that facility as well, and we're not sure that everyone is using silencers.
And it's not clear that, I mean, it is fairly clear that silencers can't be used on all the things they're firing there. I don't know if they make silencers for shotguns. Maybe some of our local. local experts can tell us, but Yeah, and I mean, we can talk about this at greater length, but I mean, the zoning approach, I think, is sort of foreclosed upon by virtue of their having been, having used that site since the 40s or earlier for that purpose. But I do wonder whether there's anything we can do using the noise ordinance, for example, to at least try to create some parameters, because right now it's a free-for-all down.
And I'm assuming we looked into the noise.
I don't think we did, actually.
Okay, so we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Anything else in correspondence that folks? Let's just give some updates and then we may go into executive session. So Jay Franklin has asked if the town of Ithaca would write a letter of support in terms of them submitting a local government efficiency grant to update their assessment database, and like a fine thing to do. And he says that it will actually help us find information more readily. He feels that the assessment office isn't in the 21st century yet.
I think there is some problem there. I think they keep putting the decimal point in the wrong place. Nice assessment.
For any particular property in general.
Yeah, right.
So I am waiting for him to give me a draft letter of support, but we plan on moving forward on that. The management team has had some discussions, which now I think has extended to zoning board and planning board, just clarifying communication processes with the public. So we've added or are in the process of adding additional information to the website. I know that there's meetings, or will be meetings with the new chairs of those two committees just to help think through appropriate communication processes. So we checked what we had written in the procedures manual related to town board. Remember, there was a procedures and policy manual for the town board. We'll probably have to look at that toward the end of maybe this.
Renewed in January.
Yeah, my guess is no one's gonna, but somehow next year we'll take a closer look to see if there's changes. We didn't see any needed changes for what it has to say about the town board. But when the packet comes out in January, you might remind yourself of some of what's in the procedures and policy. I think that's all of the, yeah, well, I don't think any other just general updates? So I'd like to move us to go into executive session to discuss the acquisition of real property, where disclosure may affect the outcome. So I think, is anyone still on Zoom? We'll have to ask people on Zoom. And it's just Scott.
Second motion.
All those in favor of going into executive session? Unanimous. I think everyone can stay. I'm not worried about it. So and you stop us.